Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Boyer. Well, this is something new. I'm actually talking to you guys instead of showing you some of my short films or random things I make. I got it in my head recently to do sort of a movie showcasing series because, frankly, I watch a lot of movies and not many of them are flicks that I think most people are watching or have even heard of. Oh, whoops, my hipster is showing. Sorry. But anyway, I'm hoping to turn this into an episodic series in which I showcase 10 movies that I feel are underrated or deserve more exposure. And before someone inevitably comments this, I'm going to be upfront and say one of the main catalysts for doing this was thanks to the yearly top 10 lists that Adam at Your Movie Sucks does. In fact, he's one of my go-to sources on finding new movies that I wouldn't have heard of otherwise, so more likely than not a fair portion of the movies on these lists are going to be movies that he's discussed. But I'll do my best to showcase movies I found on my own. So without further ado, let's begin. The first movie on my list is the 2014 horror movie Creep. I'm going to be upfront and say that I love the found footage horror genre, but it's a very love-hate relationship. When found footage is done right, I feel it can show some of the most intimidating and unsettling images put to film. With that being said, it's a very easy genre to screw up, so finding a good found footage movie is a rarity. To me, this one stands out due to the intimacy of only being shown two characters for the entirety of the movie's runtime. The plot revolves around a freelance videographer named Aaron being hired by a man named Joseph to document a day in his life for his unborn son, whom Joseph will never meet due to terminal cancer. As you can imagine, things get pretty weird as we get to know Joseph more and more, and Mark Duplass knocks this performance out of the park as portraying the weird, twisted man that Joseph is. Like I said, the found footage horror genre is a tough one to do without falling into stereotypes, and while this movie does have several cheap jump scares, the majority of the tension comes from us reacting with Aaron to Joseph's bizarre antics. If you're looking for a good horror movie you can find on Netflix, which seem too far and in between to me these days, Creep really stands out and definitely lives up to its title.
Hello?
Hello?
Angela?
Joseph?
No, this is Aaron.
Oh, is Joseph there, please?
He's sleeping.
I'm sorry, who is this?
Aaron, your husband hired me.
What?
Your husband hired me to film him. For the cancer.
Where are you right now, Aaron?
We're at your house in Crestline.
You're where? Okay, never mind. Listen, I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and just leave. Right now.
What the fuck's going on?
Nothing. You just go ahead and exit the house. You will be fine.
Wait, I'm trying to leave. I can't find my fucking car keys.
Okay, that's okay. Just give me the address of where you are, and then just walk out of there right now. Just keep walking, okay?
Am I in danger right now?
My brother has problems.
Next up is the 2008 science fiction movie Sunshine. This movie was directed by Danny Boyle, and if you didn't know by looking at the back of the DVD, you can clearly tell by the cinematography. This movie is beautifully shot from the opening right down to the last frame. It's also one of the first apocalypse movies I can remember where I doubted the protagonists would succeed, which is definitely a plus. Anytime you can make a movie in a genre that's been done to death and make it fresh and original, the audience will always appreciate it, whether they care about that kind of thing or not. That being said, however, the third act of this movie feels like it needed a rewrite. I can't really describe what I mean without going into spoilers, so skip to this part of the video if you don't want to know anything about the plot. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, so about 2/3 of the way into the movie, after the Icarus II has docked with the Icarus I and Cyril, Harvey, and Trey are killed, the protagonist Kappa, played by Cillian Murphy, discovers the captain of the Icarus I has been alive all these years and snuck on board their ship to sabotage their mission. From here, it turns into a slasher movie rather than the sort of space apocalypse film that the first 2/3 of the movie were going for, and I think this is where the plot starts to decline. I think suspension of disbelief can only be stretched so far, and trying to convince me that the original captain decided to keep himself alive on the off chance that a second Icarus mission would one day dock with his ship is a little absurd. I disagree with most critics who say that the slasher element is a cheap way to finish a great build-up. The whole setup of the movie, that the characters need to deal with their own human error as the cause of their problems, was a great setup, but at this point in the plot they pretty much have everything under control. Granted, they know they're on a suicide mission at this point, but the mission is still running smoothly. While I agree that analyzing the psyche of the characters now that they know they are definitely going to die would be interesting, I still like the setup of having a crazy character who has become convinced that it's humanity's time to die. If I were to rewrite the script, I would kill off the captain of the Icarus I and replace him with the Cyril character. I would introduce a sequence at the beginning of the movie after Searle gives his speech about how light is all-enveloping, in which Searle is doing routine psych evaluations of the crew, and I would showcase the interview with Kaneda. Kaneda would slip up his professional demeanor and mention his fascination with the Icarus One's travel logs, and Searle would ask to see them for a reference. Upon observing them, Searle becomes increasingly fascinated with the thoughts of the Icarus One captain, to the point of being obsessed with them. He becomes increasingly obsessed as the movie progresses, but hides it from the crew, and upon hearing the captain's final message about God and death, snaps and decides that the sun's inevitable implosion is the all-enveloping light of God sending humanity to heaven. From Trey's suicide onward, I would keep the movie the same, just substituting Searle with the captain of the Icarus One. I don't know, just my thinking. All in all, Sunshine is a fascinating movie, and is definitely a movie anyone who enjoys a good action thriller should watch.
Our sun is dying. Mankind faces extinction. The Earth frozen in a solar winter. 16 months ago, our last best hope left Earth. Our purpose, to create a star within a star.
We have a payload to deliver to the heart of our nearest star. That star is dying, and if it dies, everything dies. There is nothing, literally nothing more important than completing our mission.
Are you scared?
No.
I am.
Next on the list is a 2008 documentary called Dear Zachary, a letter to a son about his father. I recently took a course at the college I go to that centered on documentaries. Needless to say, we watched a lot of them, and while we didn't happen to watch this one in class, our professor had a long list of documentaries she recommended we watch, and this one was on the list. In hindsight, I'm glad we didn't watch this one in class, because I wouldn't want to cry in front of 20 or 30 people. This is, without a doubt, one of the most emotional movies I've ever seen. I don't cry easily at movies, but this one had me in tears within the first 10 minutes. The movie follows a man named Kurt Kenny who finds out his childhood friend was murdered, and that the killer is pregnant with his child. The movie is made to inform the then unborn child about who his dad was and how many lives he impacted. I think everyone at one time or another has imagined what our friends and family's lives would be like if we weren't around anymore, and this movie answers that question in a very definitive way. If you're ever in doubt about whether or not you're making a difference in other people's lives, just put this movie on and be completely reassured. Apart from the personal aspect, this is a beautifully executed movie, from the order of the shots, to the music, to the accompanying footage, and etc., etc. According to IMDb, Kurt hasn't really made much since this movie, and even though I feel like this is quite possibly the best thing he'll ever make, I'd love to see more from him in the future. All in all, Dear Zachary is a fantastic documentary, which is a must-see for anyone who wants to fully appreciate their family, friends, and life. Definitely check it out.
I called back to the Sunnyvale police station, so he gave me another number, and then I got through to Sergeant Krulak, and he said, "Your son is dead under suspicious circumstances. Have you got any idea why he was in the park?" I said, "My son's dead." "Murdered?" He said, "Yes." And then I called David, and I said to him, "Andrew's dead." And he said, "No." And I heard him throw the phone. I called Sergeant Krulak back and I said, "We're coming." And he said, "Well, that's good."
Through that flight, we thought we'd go get Andrew and bring him back to California and get everything organized, whatever, and then kill ourselves, because no point going on. That was the first plan.
My next selection for this list is a 2014 Swedish movie called A Pigeon Sat on a Branch Reflecting on Existence. This movie is actually the third in a trilogy by the director Roy Andersson, the first two being Songs from the Second Floor and You the Living. And while I haven't seen either of these movies before, I've definitely added them into my watch list because this movie is very, very funny. That being said, this isn't your traditional comedy. The majority of the film is shown in the series of sketches that showcase awkward scenarios, so if you like awkwardness, this one is definitely for you. The fact that the movie isn't structured normally might turn some away, but if you're willing to push past that, you'll find it was worth it. Check it out.
Han är död som en sten.
Jaha, då får vi skaffa hit en bår och ta honom till en ledig hytt. Och det finns någon som är ledig förstås.
Ja, det finns det.
Får jag fråga en sak?
Ja,
Hur gör vi med det här nu då?
hur menar du?
Ja, han har ju betalat.
Bra fråga. Vi kan ju inte ta betalt för det här 2 gånger. Vi får försöka ge bort det.
Ja. Är det någon som vill ha det här? En räksmörgås och en stor starköl. Gratis.
Jag kan ta ölen.
Ja, varsågod.
The next movie is the 2003 animated film Interstella 5555, The Story of the Secret Star System. This movie is a collaboration between Thomas Bangalter and Guy-Manuel de Homem-Christo, better known as the French EDM duo Daft Punk, and Japanese manga and anime artist Leiji Matsumoto. The goal was to take the group's sophomore album, Discovery, and create a film around the music. The result is a bizarre retelling of the classic Superman tale. An alien band is kidnapped, brainwashed, and sent to Earth to generate profit for a sinister being, while the group's biggest fan tries to rescue them. Admittedly, I'm a pretty big fan of Daft Punk, and this is arguably my favorite album of theirs. The images and action created to fit each individual song is damn near perfect, to even the point where I believe a non-fan could still appreciate it. If you're a fan of this, I'd also recommend Daft Punk's other cinematic endeavors, DAFT, a story about dogs, androids, firemen, and tomatoes, Electroma, and The Collaborators, each of them corresponding to the albums Homework, Human After All, and Random Access Memories, respectively. I might talk about these in a future video, but for now, Interstella is an excellent flick for anyone who appreciates good house music, anime, or both.
Last night I had a dream about you. In this dream I'm dancing right beside you, and it looked like everyone was having fun. The kind of feeling I waited so long. Don't stop, come a little closer as we jam. The rhythm gets stronger. There's nothing wrong with just a little fun. We were dancing all night long. The time is right to put my arms around you. You're feeling right, you wrap your arms around you. But suddenly I feel the shining sun. Before I knew it, this dream was all gone. Ooh, I don't know what to do about this dream and you. I wish this dream comes true.
Next up, we have the 2010 British comedy The Trip. This movie was originally released as a multi-part BBC miniseries, and while the editing definitely shows this, it's not noticeable enough to detract from the story. This is one of the funniest movies I've seen recently, and that's definitely thanks to the 2 lead actors, Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. They're playing exaggerated versions of themselves, and much of the dialogue, while written within a framework, is improvised, which is amazing because you would have never guessed that if you hadn't been told that prior to watching the film. All that aside, the movie is about an actor named Steve inviting his friend Rob on a tour across England to find great restaurants after his girlfriend decides not to go. Aside from showcasing the witty banter about acting and fame, the film explores their different backgrounds and personal lives, which is very fascinating to watch and creates an interesting contrast to the comedic scenes. I highly recommend The Trip if you're looking for a clever yet simple comedy.
Come, Mr. Bond. You derive just as much pleasure from killing as I do.
Come, Mr. Bond. You get just as much pleasure from killing as I do.
I was saying that bit.
All right, no, I'm saying just don't caricature it. Try and do it real. Come, Mr. Bond.
Shut up, don't tell me how to act.
Well, I bloody should do.
Why?
Because sometimes you tend to sort of, crank it up a bit.
Yeah, whereas you are widely regarded as the king of understatement.
All right, I would do like this. Come, Mr. Bond. You get just as much of... Come, Mr. Bond.
Try and get the lines right.
All right,
as a rule, it's more effective if you don't fluff the line.
Okay, but I'll deliver it with a nice bit of understatement. Come, Mr. Bond, you get just as much pleasure from killing as I do.
That was the
all right,
worst.
Okay, all right, this is it. Come, Mr. Bond, you get just as much pleasure from killing as I do.
Come, Mr. Bond, you get just as much pleasure from killing as I do. Fucking yeah.
No, you went up at the end, like you watch Australian soaps.
You see what I did on my face?
Come, Mr. Bond, you get just as much pleasure from killing as I do.
Come, Mr. Bond. You derive just as much pleasure from killing as I do.
Next up, we have a 1998 American comedy called Pleasantville. To be perfectly honest with you, I have no clue why more people don't know about this one. I love nearly everything about this movie, and I've yet to show it to someone who didn't enjoy it at least a little bit. The story revolves around a brother and a sister, played by Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon, who are both teens in the late 90s and end up getting stuck in a 50s sitcom. Over time, they expose the characters of the sitcom to new ways of thinking, and things slowly change from black and white to color, which angers the higher-ups who like their all-American society the way it is. Aside from being very visually striking, the movie is a great metaphor for societal change, prejudice, growing up, etc., etc. Plus, it features Paul Walker driving around in a nice car, which is sure to make you Fast and Furious fans happy. Speaking of casting, everyone in this movie does a great job, especially Joan Allen and Jeff Daniels, and J.T. Walsh plays a great bad guy. Recently, I showed this movie to a friend of mine who was going through a rough patch in her life, and she said that this movie really made her feel better about the world. So if you think you're going through any experience that makes you lose faith in society, just pop this movie in and see what happens.
Hello, Bud. Hello, Margaret.
Whitey?
Hey, Bud. Why aren't you at the town meeting right now?
No reason. How come you're not?
We're supposed to go around and let everyone know about it. I thought maybe it was because you were too busy entertaining your colored girlfriend.
Hey, why don't you guys get the hell out of here?
All right. We'll do that. You know, Margaret, you can come over and make those oatmeal cookies for me anytime you want to.
The next movie on this list is the 1997 mystery drama The Game. This is another one of those movies I'm surprised more people aren't familiar with, especially given it's a David Fincher movie. I guess he's just made so many fantastic flicks it's hard to give the proper attention to all of them, but I digress. The movie follows Michael Douglas, who's playing a rich businessman who receives an invitation from his younger brother to partake in a game that will supposedly make his life more fun. A reluctant Michael Douglas agrees, and increasingly bizarre and strange things start happening to him that are supposedly part of the game, but when things start to turn deadly, he slowly starts to lose his grip on reality. In any mystery film, it's quintessential that the film be one step ahead of the audience, but The Game somehow manages to stay at least 5 steps ahead of us at any given time, which not only creates an air of mystery, but also a sense of dread as things get worse and worse for our protagonist. That being said, a more cynical viewer can look at this movie and find it less enjoyable, because many of the film's events are incredibly circumstantial, and it's a little doubtful that the antagonists would have been able to plan so far ahead without anything going wrong. But if you can suspend your disbelief just a tad, it's a very easy film to enjoy, and it'll definitely keep you on the edge of your seat for the entirety of its runtime. If you're a David Fincher fanatic and somehow missed this one, definitely check it out.
Hey, open the door. Lock the door. Open the goddamn door!
Listen, I am a very wealthy man, and whatever they're paying you, I'll double it.
The next pick for this list is the 2009 English-language French movie Enter the Void. This is, without a doubt, one of the most interestingly shot movies I've ever seen. If you liked the shooting method behind Birdman, you'll definitely like this as well. The plot follows a drug dealer named Oscar who lives in Tokyo with his sister, who makes a living as a stripper. While on his way to a party, the cops bust Oscar and he is shot and killed. The rest of the movie's runtime is spent as we float around viewing Oscar's life and lives of his friends and family after his death through his POV. Needless to say, since the movie deals with a drug-addicted protagonist and what he sees after death, you can expect a lot of bizarre and trippy imagery, and this movie does not disappoint in that regard. Everything is shot beautifully, and the soundtrack, while minimal, accompanies the visuals perfectly. While I don't think that your casual moviegoer will enjoy it as much as I did, I still feel it's a very fascinating movie from the shooting aesthetic alone, and the story is still fascinating enough to keep your attention, even if the cinematography is a turnoff for you. All in all, I still think this movie is great, and even someone who doesn't go out of their way to watch overly artsy movies can still appreciate it. Give it a watch if you have some time to kill.
Do you know that tomorrow's the anniversary of Mom and Dad's death? I'm having fun. This is like heaven. It's so beautiful. I really feel so happy here with you. I feel free. I feel very, very free. You promised me you'll never leave me?
Of course.
And last but not least, I'll conclude this list with the 2010 documentary OC-87. If you've ever suffered a mental illness that affects how social you are, then this movie is a must-see. The filmmaker responsible suffers from depression, Asperger's syndrome, bipolar disorder, and OCD, and the majority of it is chronicling his life as he's attempted to deal with these illnesses and how they've affected his dreams of becoming a filmmaker. And while I don't suffer from any of these illnesses, I do have some minor social anxiety, and my god, so much of what he says in this film is relatable. Aside from your average straightforward interview segments, he also includes a skit or two about dealing with his mental problems, and they were really interesting to watch. Nothing bugs me more when I hear someone who doesn't have mental problems trying to advise someone who does on how to deal with them by just getting over it, and I think these people need to see this movie. It definitely provides a great amount of insight into how these type of people see the world, and it shows that no matter what your shortcomings are, with time, hard work, and dedication, you can overcome them. I know how cheesy that sounds, but you got the idea. It almost makes you wonder why films like this aren't shown in health classes along films like Super Size Me, Fed Up, or Food Incorporated, because what those movies do for helping people understand how the food industry works, this movie does for helping people understand how social anxiety and mental illness can shape our mind's perception of the world and people around us. Regardless, this is a great documentary, and I really hope this filmmaker makes more in the future.
Dark screen, then a flash of lightning. Then from that flash we see the wide shot of the antimatter world set. Bad Buddy is pulling Good Buddy along by a chain.
I can't go on like this. Please stop, you're driving me crazy.
You deserve everything you get for hurting people. You hate people. You despise them. They've done everything for you, yet you are not loyal.
Why have you brought me here?
To kill you. Why else?
You can't kill me. I'm a part of you. You need me.
I don't need you. You're disposable. You are trash.
My therapist says I'm a good person, not a bad person.
What does he know? You pay him. Of course he's gonna tell you that, you idiot. Let's go.
Well, there it is. Those are 10 movies I feel are either underrated or deserve more exposure. I'm thinking of making this a regular series, so if you guys like this, let me know. I hope some of these movies looked interesting to you, and if you want to watch any of them, 7 out of the 10 listed here can be found on Netflix, so they should be relatively easy to find. Even if you see them and end up disliking them, I'm always up for hearing new opinions and having discussions about these kind of things. And if you have a movie you'd like to suggest, feel free to comment below. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more.